To discuss how strategic leadership and policy can strengthen American competitiveness, please welcome to the stage Senator Dave McCormick and Michael Allen, Managing Director at Beacon Global Strategies.
Shall we get started here? I feel like we're waiting for an introduction, but
I think we just had it.
we just ready to roll. Okay, everybody, thanks so much for coming. My name's Michael Allen. I work at a firm called Beacon Global Strategies, and we're here and so proud to be with a friend and former colleague, Senator Dave McCormick from Pennsylvania, who was just elected in a very exciting race not too long ago. Senator, thanks so much for coming and doing this event.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Well, the president just had a very interesting visit to the Middle East, and one of the top topics was, of course, AI and the United States chip industry. And as I've noticed in recent months, this is one of the most exciting new geopolitical topics around.
Yeah.
Many people in the Middle East are after our chips, and they want to diversify their economy further and become leaders in software and the application of artificial intelligence. You were there right after the president. Tell us about who you visited with, what you saw, and a little bit about the geopolitical implications of this topic.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for doing this, and great to be here. In part because the reason I agreed to come was in part because of the incredible job Eric Schmidt's done in investing in this event and creating the right conversation of people. So thank you all for being here. And I did go right after the president. I've been going to the United Arab Emirates for about 25 years. And so I've seen this progression, but I don't think I've ever had such a stark reaction to what I saw, which is this incredible evolution, really led by MBZ, who has, I think, had a vision for diversifying away from energy and having the UAE become a real leader. And if you look over the last 10 years or so, the UAE has been a very close ally of the United States, but it's also, that relationship struggled a bit, particularly during the Biden administration because of the deal with Iran. And so there was a little bit of a question, you know, how is the UAE going to hedge relative to the United States, relative to China? And as it thinks about really playing a leadership role on the world stage, both in energy innovation and in artificial intelligence. And as you know well, that intersection is really important because the enormous energy demands associated with data centers and artificial intelligence requires us to continue to innovate and find sources of energy. So I found in my visit this incredible vision of how the United Arab Emirates can play a great role on the global stage, and a partnership with the United States with the deal that President Trump did on advanced chips that I think solidifies the UAE in the appropriate camp and alliance with us. If you do a counter narrative, imagine a scenario where we hadn't been willing to move forward on one of our closest allies with that chips deal. I think that would have put the UAE in a precarious position where they had to sort of hedge and choose, and I think this solidifies them. If you believe, as I believe, that we're in a global competition with our greatest adversary, which is China, that has, and we'll talk about that I'm sure in a minute, has enormous capabilities, having the UAE as our close partner and making sure they're clearly aligned with the United States, I think is a critical geostrategic, geopolitical goal. And I think that's what President Trump's visit did. That solidified further. In addition, as you know, they have enormous capital, which they're trying to use to diversify away from the energy sector. And so as part of that visit and agreement, the UAE agreed to invest $1.4 trillion in the United States over the next 10 years, $140 billion a year. So there you have, the way I think about it, the way I described it, we met with you know, a number of the key players, including the MBZ, including the leader, and I described the relationship as like two ships, and you want to throw as many ropes across as you can. You have the defense alliance, you have economic ties, you have them being big investors, you have the chips, and those ropes thrown across between the two ships, they bind us together. So we're not just pulled together by a defense alliance. We're not just pulled together and a common worry and foe in Iran. We're not just pulled together by economic alliance and co-investing. We're pulled together by the fact that we're going to be building the future as it relates to artificial intelligence together. And I think that was a key development.
Well, I want to come back to what you mentioned, which is the investments that the UAE have agreed to make in the United States, including whether that includes your home state of Pennsylvania. But before we get there, I know you've talked about China for a long, long time. Could you also talk about the risks of artificial intelligence, not just the software itself, if you will, but the chips diffusing or spreading to China because of their presence in the Middle East?
Well, if you sort of start with the framing, and some in the audience may not agree with this framing, but the way I see the world is that we have in China a true adversary. We have in China also a mutual dependence in the sense that the United States is the largest economy in the world and China is the second largest. So the challenge is how to compete, how to build our capability in the United States in a way that ensures that American leadership is supreme, do that in a way that hopefully doesn't lead to any conflict with the United States, but not just be able to check China's rise globally, but do the things at home that ensure we win the race, that we're competitive. And if you believe that artificial intelligence gives a unique set of capabilities that are scary, can be scary in a way where ultimately they allow enormous innovation in defense capabilities. They allow enormous gains in productivity. They could result in huge societal disruption. So how artificial intelligence evolves, we I believe in the United States, and we as a public official, want to ensure that America remains in a leadership position to try to shape both what we do at home, but the global norms and the global regime. And we do that, I think, by achieving leadership and doing the things at home to be able to be a true leader, doing the things with our allies like the United Arab Emirates that allows us to remain in a leadership position, and that depends a lot on what we do. And we can talk about the agenda at home, but the biggest thing we can do to be able to compete and win against our adversary China is right here at home. To be the fastest, to be the most innovative, and that depends on what we do.
Yeah, it depends a lot, and I'm so glad that President Trump, you, others, were able to get to that region and make an implicit deal that if we're going to do more with artificial intelligence in the Middle East, we expect them not to do the same thing with China.
And they clearly understand that. That was a very specific parameter of the agreement, was that the protection of that intellectual property used for only the United Arab Emirates.
That's great. Another part of the deal, or at least an implicit part of the deal, was that the UAE and other Gulf countries would make tremendous investments back here in the United States. We need to do data centers there because they have access to energy quickly, but we also are improving our energy, and we also want to be able to build data centers here in America, not just in the Middle East. Talk a little bit about how you think that's going to shake out over time, and I think you have some plans or some hopes that this might occur in Pennsylvania also.
First of all, I think if you think about American leadership in the world, being the leader in innovation, a big part of that is being a very attractive climate for foreign direct investment. So America first, American leadership, that doesn't mean that you're in some ways pushing away foreign investment. You're welcoming it. You're creating a regulatory environment. You're creating a business climate that welcomes that foreign capital. In Pennsylvania, as an example, we have about $20 billion of foreign direct investment. 330,000 jobs are dependent on it. And we hope that number across the country is going to grow dramatically. We hope that as part of the changes we're making in our economy, that it's going to be increasingly attractive. And that's what's happened in the first couple months of the Trump administration. Whether it's $2 trillion or $3 trillion or $4 trillion, there's been an enormous amount of commitment of new investment. Some of it's been Apple and TSMC and other very public names. Part of it's been countries like the United Arab Emirates saying they're going to commit to $1.4 trillion over the next 10 years of investment in the United States. And a big part of that investment, I think, will be at the intersection of energy innovation, and artificial intelligence. And the United States offers unique opportunity there in Pennsylvania. My home state offers opportunity. We're the 4th largest natural gas reserves in the world in Pennsylvania. We have a huge nuclear installed base. We just saw the benefit of that with a deal that Microsoft did with 3 Mile Island, the nuclear reactor there. So we've got very abundant energy resources. We have unbelievable building capability to build data centers. When I talk to the hyperscalers, the people that are investing, it's actually not the price that is the key driver, it's the speed, the ability to get the data center capability up and running. And so we have a very significant building trade capability to build data centers. It depends on proximity. So at least for certain types of data centers, we are within 500 miles of 65% of the population of the United States in Pennsylvania, because the large concentrations in the Northeast. And finally, it is state-of-the-art software, state-of-the-art technical capabilities with places like Carnegie Mellon and University of Pennsylvania and so forth. So I'm hoping that as we see this wave of investment at the intersection of energy and innovation, that Pennsylvania, and other states are doing this too, but Pennsylvania can be one of the beneficiaries of that. And so to that end, one of the things we're doing is hosting a big energy AI summit in Pittsburgh in July, which will bring together leaders from around the world, global investors, energy company CEOs, the CEOs of the hyperscalers, key public officials, to try to be the catalyst for further investment, and also to bring the spotlight on the opportunity that exists in places like Pennsylvania. And so I think that's great for Pennsylvania, obviously, but I think it's great for the goal of energy dominance. If you think about the importance in a world of AI, the importance of energy dominant capability from an economic perspective, from a national security perspective, even from a climate perspective, if you think about the importance of natural gas or nuclear in terms of addressing climate change, this is the moment where energy dominance is the geopolitical currency, where artificial intelligence is the source of economic growth, dynamism, and productivity enhancement. So it's a competition.
Yeah.
And how do you put your best foot forward as a country? And if you're a senator or a governor, how do you put your best foot forward as a public official? I think that's the game we're in, and we're trying to do a good job on that in Pennsylvania.
Senator, one of the reasons you're unique among many of your colleagues is that you worked at the White House, at the National Security Council, but you also worked export controls at the Commerce Department. You were at Treasury at a very tumultuous time in America's financial history. I wonder if you might talk about the complete experience that you had there, not just about AI, but I think, and I know from your book that you called the technology competition with China as existential. The quest for technological superiority is existential for the United States. Draw upon your broader background and talk a little bit about the competition that we have today.
Well, when I joined the government, it was in 2005, and I went to the Commerce Department. I was the Undersecretary for the Bureau of Export Administration. And I can honestly say, when people would ask me what I was doing and I would describe that, 99% of the people had never heard of that job.
Yeah.
Didn't know anything about it. It was sort of a backwater place. Did important work, but very narrowly defined. And essentially the essence of the job was, we have unique technology assets. How do we export them around the world in a way that supports our businesses, but not do so in a way that compromises our national security? So you were sort of in this tension between the business people that wanted to get the benefit and the national security people. But this was a relatively small issue in the overall scheme of things, although there were early signs of a growing competition with China around certain technologies. Fast forward, I can't read in a given week any major publications I read is my job without seeing some mention of the criticality of export controls, the tension, which is how do you manage those in a world of where you're trying to stimulate innovation and where our allies have key capabilities? How do you do that with secondary export controls or sanctions? And the very fact that our regime of export controls hasn't kept up. And that was the essence of the problem 20 years ago. It's become orders of magnitude a bigger challenge today, because the very essence of innovation often relies on openness, and the very critical mission of protecting your advantage depends on closeness. And so how do you balance those things? And in artificial intelligence, that arena, we see that competition at home among the key AI companies, but we also see that competition with China, which has unique advantages in some ways because of access to data and unlimited capital, but they also have challenges because their innovation system is not as innovative as ours in many ways. So that's the public policy question, which is how do you maintain a leadership role in a world which is changing so quickly? And you even see the competition among our top 5 or 6 hyperscalers, our AI leaders, and we can probably expect in the next couple of years there'll be 2 or 3. That's how quickly competitive advantage is being achieved. And so the key, I think, is to, first and foremost, do the things at home that make sure you run faster. So you can try to slow the other guy down. So we should probably try to slow the other guy down with export controls and making sure the UAE doesn't export our chips and so forth. But the most fundamental thing is making sure we run faster.
Yeah.
And so how do we run faster? Well, I think we have to recognize that we're in a world where we need to put the necessary capital into basic research. We need to make it as easy as possible to ensure that private capital is flowing to the things that are most important. We need to remain the beacon, the light on the hill for all the best talent around the world. One of the things that's been so instrumental to America's success is that we've been the beacon where all the greatest minds want to come. At the same time, how do you guard against that openness being something that then follows back to China or other competitors and brings it? So it's a balancing act, but the essence of the battle we're in my opinion, is we got to run faster. And so I think from a public policy perspective, we're looking at all the things that would inhibit our running faster and making sure, and I think the Trump administration has this mindset, making sure we don't stand in our own way, because the existential risk of losing the war, the battle for AI leadership is enormously consequential.
And so, David, in your time in the Senate, is it broadly understood, of course everyone knows we're in a competition with China, but is it broadly understood the scope of the competition with China, that it's more than just military, that it's economic and the issues that you're able to bring to the forefront?
Well, listen, I've followed this for years. I've written a book about it, and I can't keep up myself. Like I'm reading constantly, and I find myself always learning something new and saying, "Oh my God, how didn't I know that a month ago, or 3 months ago, or 6 months ago?" With AI in particular, if you're not someone with deep technical expertise, it's a real, it's almost a real responsibility almost to continue to try to stay as current as possible. If you believe it's as existential as I described, if you believe it's as consequential for the role of America in the world, the role of technology in our society, then you have a responsibility to be a student, an open-minded student that's learning as much as possible. So no, I don't think any of us, probably with maybe a few exceptions, are adequately up to date, and I think we all have to be deeply paranoid that we're not current enough. In terms of the battle with China and the risk of China, I think there's a broad understanding that China is an adversary. I think certainly on the Republican side there's that recognition. But the idea of military versus economic versus, that whole world's gone.
Yeah.
In the old days we used to say, well, let's take some comfort because China's defense budget's 1/10 of ours. We spend $800 billion a year, they spend $80 billion a year. Or some comfort in the fact that we lead the world in patents or things like that. I don't think we should take comfort in any of that anymore, because the difference between military technology and civilian technology, it's totally converged. The Ukraine, recent events in Ukraine where you saw the drone attacks that just went into Russia. Well, those drones are commercially available technology that China or Iran or North Korea or the United States would have. So the boundaries between military technology, civilian technology, the implications of artificial intelligence for the way that battles will be fought, the notion of how dependent we are on technology and that there could be whole wars that take place without involving soldiers or even people. This is a whole new world. It defies conventional thinking. And so on one hand, we sort of have to do the basic things you do to have a good military and recruit people and make sure you have lethality in your weapons. On the other hand, you almost have to spend half your time imagining a world that didn't exist even 3 years ago, because that's the world of the future. And militaries have a bad history of that. They typically look backwards when they think about what they need to do to prepare for the future. And so this is a real conundrum. And I think if you're a leader in the Senate or a governor or a president or a cabinet member, I think the most important characteristic these days is both paranoia in terms of thinking you haven't figured it out, and humility in terms of the need to draw in the thinking of others, because it's very hard for any of us to comprehend the magnitude of the change and the necessity of us changing with it. And so that's what I worry about. I wake up and I think I could probably be a good senator looking backwards the way it used to be a good senator. I'm not sure I can be a good senator looking forwards and imagining the way that one should be thinking about the challenges and the opportunities that this new world presents.
Senator, as we begin to wrap up, I like the way you described the United States needs a good defensive strategy, for example, export controls, but that we also need to win at home. We need to run faster here in the United States. You and your terrific wife, Dina, have written a new book on mentorship. And it occurs to me that mentorship is part of our effort at home to run faster, to bring people along and to nurture talent. Am I looking at this the right way? And tell us about the book.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you sort of step back and say, that world I just described, it's so technical, it's so fast moving, it's evolving so quickly, and you say, what is going to be the secret sauce? What's going to be the differentiator in both commercially between the winners and losers, between the countries that excel, the countries that lag behind? If you sort of had to put your finger on one thing, what would it be? I think the thing would be leadership.
Yeah.
I think the thing that will make the difference in this moment of change, as it always has in the course of history, is leaders that are able to adapt. And so my wife and I, this was really during COVID, long before I decided to run for office, we started to think about the effects of COVID in terms of people being able to develop as leaders, and particularly the role that mentorship played. And so we wrote a book about mentorship, calling on great leaders that we knew, people in the military, people in, everybody from Condi Rice to Christine Lagarde to Satya Nadella, and we asked them about the people that had helped them become the leaders they are. So the book is about the people you've never heard of that help the famous people you have heard of become the people they are. And the essence of it in this time of incredible change is every person, no one should feel like they can't make a difference in this moment, because the difference you can make is taking on the mantle of mentorship and helping the next generation find their purpose, find their best use, find the way that they can make a difference in the world. So the book, we ask everybody to ask themselves 3 questions. I know it sounds soft, like a soft topic in this world of hard numbers and data, but I think it's really spiritually the essence of winning in leadership, which is, who believed in you? Who helped you become who you are? Second question is, have you told them thank you? Because when we interviewed all these famous people, some of them broke down crying in saying, I never took the time to tell them thank you. I never took the moment to tell them how important they were to me. And the third question is, what are you doing? What are you doing to pay it forward? What are you doing to help them? You don't have to be 50 or 60 like I am. What are you doing to help the next generation, to help someone find their purpose? So in this world of, dramatically increasing energy capability and dramatic change in AI capacity and all those, technological developments that are changing the world, my hope and belief is that leadership will make the difference in a society that's going to, deliver for its citizens and the world. And that leadership piece is something that we can't lose track of in the midst of all the change.
That's a great high note to end on. If everybody could join me in thanking Senator Dave McCormick for participating today.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike, for doing it.
Good job.